Right. Obeisance to my guru and protector Manjushri holds it is hard to scriptural text and Bodhisattva sins or things as they are, whose understanding shines forth as the sun unclouded by defilements or traces of ignorance, who teaches in 60 ways with a patient love of Father for his only Son, all creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering. Yours whose drunken thunder proclamation of the Dhamma arises from their stupor for delusions and frees us from the iron chains of our karma, whose powerful sword of wisdom hews stars of suffering wherever its sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness of all ignorance. And Tricho Manjushu's princely body is adorned with the 112 marks of a Buddha, who has completed the 10 stages, achieving the highest perfection of a Bodhisattva, who has been pure from the beginning. O Manjushri, loving one, with your brilliance of your wisdom, illuminate the darkness and close in my mind, enlighten my intelligence and wisdom, so that I may gain insight into the Buddha's words and the texts that explain them. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, the highest assembly. From the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain this state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain this state of Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. I'll go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain the state of Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. Right. So good afternoon. We're almost done. We have 1 week to go. This time around, we've been really fortunate to be able to spend so much time on this text. And I remember that there were days or occasions where I found myself just get on with it. But actually, we are very fortunate to have the mental space, to be given the mental space to, I think, not only think of what Shantideva says, but also to think about how am I going to put it into practice, or how does it actually, how does it apply to me? So at least for me, on a personal level, it worked really nicely. So today, let's look at what we've covered today. So we've completed the third point, dedicating so that they have the temporary endowments and pleasures. The third point in that, dedicating so that all basic necessities are complete and harm is pacified. So that with respect to human beings in general. And then we looked at a specific dedication for the sake of the ordained, or for the sake of ordained communities and so forth. So I just pulled out a couple of points, a few points, and I thought that we can discuss them. And then if you have more points that you wanted to, or still want to bring up, we can do that. So yesterday we covered verse 39, belonging to this section, dedicating so that all basic necessities are complete and that harm is pacified. And today we picked up on verse 40. Let's just read through that. So right, verses 40 and 41 still belong to this section. So yesterday we spoke of, may the gods also send down timely rain, and may crops be plentiful. May kings act in accordance with the Dhamma, and may worldly beings also prosper. Today we said, may medicines be potent, and recitation of second mantras be effective. May the kidneys, rakshasas, and so forth be endowed with minds of compassion. So may medicines be potent. Geshe-la spoke today, I think that he mentioned medicines or treatment for physical conditions, but also even more so medicine for the mind. No, particularly I think that probably from the point of view of the Dhamma, I think that what we can aspire to is to have a good and solid and effective practice. So may the medicine for the mind be potent. And I think that this is something that probably is valid to all of us, in that sometimes we have been listening to the teachings, we've been going to pujas, we've been hanging out with the Buddhist friends, but still sometimes on a daily basis we feel stuck. We feel stuck, or sometimes we feel that I've been doing it for such a long time, I don't feel any mental shift. I'm still getting angry, still being, getting frustrated. I still lose my stuff. Sorry, no magic. I wanted to say that I still lose my shit, but it's recorded, so I'm not gonna say. Yeah, I'm not gonna say that. So so it still happens. So so may medicines be potent in the sense that may we be able to know how to apply those medicines, particularly to our mind. So I think that we can make that aspiration with respect to ourselves, but we can also make it with respect to everyone around us, but not only in a Buddhist way, but also may everyone who practices any spiritual path, may their practices be effective, so long as, of course, they're of benefit to others, they're benefit to themselves, and they're not endangering others. May they be successful. So then, and the recitation of secret mantras be effective. So Geshe spoke about it today, spoke about how a recitation of a particular thing is done not only just as a mere recitation, but it is one component of a big practice. So the word for mantra, when the word is, the etymology of the word mantra is explained, it is explained as mental protection. So man is mind in Sanskrit. So mantra is mental protection. So then the question is, what do we want to protect the mind from? So in general, of course, we want to protect the mind from afflictive states of mind. That's, I think, obvious. But when you do a tantric practice, the main thing that you want to protect your mind from is ordinary appearances and clinging to those ordinary appearances. This is what we protect the mind from in a tantric practice. So here we say different mantras, right? So when someone faces a difficulty, an obstacle, when they get sick, we accumulate certain recitations of mantras for the sake of that person. We recite the mantra of Tara or Medicine Buddha and so forth. Those recitations are good. But then in terms of if we want to make a practice become a really deep level practice, which will then get us closer to the attainment of the state of enlightenment, that it needs to come within a broader context of doing a fully fledged tantric practice, which means that we are either generating ourselves as the deity. We also generate the deity in front. And that, of course, has to do, we do that if we've received an empowerment before. So if we do a practice, then, as Geshe said, it has to be based on compassion and bodhicitta. That's to begin with. Also on recognizing samsaric sufferings, and also when we generate ourselves as the deity, we do it from within the state of emptiness. So we also need the correct view. Then we establish concentration, in which we have this ability to see ourselves as the deity very clearly, right? Clear appearance of ourselves as a deity, and also without adhering to ourselves as being an ordinary person, an ordinary sentient being. We need to think to ourselves that, for example, I am Medicine Buddha, I am Tara, I am Chenrezig, I am this deity or the other deity. This, of course, if you do a fully fledged tantric practice. So here, when it says, may recitations of secret mantras be effective, I think that you can think about it also with respect to the practice of secret mantra. May we be able to do it in a fully qualified way, fully fledged way, to include all the components in that, so that it wouldn't turn into just doing a mere recitation. So of course, it's not that mere recitation is not beneficial or not helpful, but really, if you want to have like a practice that expedites your progression towards enlightenment, it needs to be complete. Jason? Yeah. Mm. Yeah, so Jason's saying, I'm repeating it for the people at home, that it's like if you want to bake a cake, then you need to make sure that you have all the ingredients. If you focus only on one of them, if you get only one of them and you expect a cake, no, I'm changing what you said, delicious cake to arise from just one ingredient, it is probably not going to happen. It's not, you need all the ingredients. Yeah, I concur. So there was another thing that I wanted to pull out from from Kempo Kumpan's presentation. It's just like I thought it's just an interesting statement. So it says in page 426, may the four medicines have perfect therapeutic power. May the chanting of the secret words of power, the secret mantras, through which all works are successfully accomplished, be swift in bringing the benefit described. So we spoke about that. And then it says, may the even intentions and actions of spirits that move in space, the elements, rakshasas, yakshas, flesh-devouring ghouls, spirits and evil phantoms, a whole list of beings be pacified, and may all such entities become loving and compassionate. So let's look just at the verse. So it says, may the kinis, rakshasas, and so forth be endowed with compassion. Kempo Kumpan explains those beings to be those beings that have evil intentions. So I was kind of just wondering, since it mentions the kinis, then what's the goal with the kinis having evil intentions, right? We normally hold the kinis to be those that pretty good, yeah. So I think that my understanding of what a dakini is quite poor, you know. Sorry? Yes, yeah, sky goer, sky dweller. I mean, it doesn't really say what a dakini is. You know, we know kind of, we can say what a meditational deity is, we can say what a protector is, we can say what a Buddha or Bodhisattva is, but we use the term dakini, but I think that we hardly give it context or content to the word dakini. Yeah. Yeah, so we also say dakas, dakinis, viras. Yeah, so I had a look at the dictionary. I'll just put it on the screen. So I'm using a dictionary called Illuminator, and it has it glosses certain terms that we use. So it says the word for dakini in Tibetan is kandro or kandroma. So there are a few meanings to that. Just kind of thought that we can read it together just to give a more full understanding of this term. So in general, the literary explanation is a space goer by means of female energy that travels through space and conveys messages. The term is used to denote female energy that moves and conveys messages at all levels, from the most vicious worldly beings to help worldly beings, to the feminine embodiment of wisdom. So then when we think of the verse, I'm connecting it with Shantideva's verse, when it says that may the kinis be endowed with compassion, I think that we can think of that as, if there are those dakinis which are associated with vicious worldly beings, may they become endowed with compassion. Then it says, each of these has a male counterpart, the general name for which is power, vira. So this is the heroes, right? So the male counterpart of the dakini is vira. In Tibetan colloquial language, it indicates the wife of a practitioner. So normally when you kind of, if a lama is married, or if a certain Rinpoche or Tuku is married, then often his wife is called his kadro. In Buddhist tantric language, it is used to indicate a woman practitioner who has attained some realization. Such yoginis are important in the tantric world because they actually carry the power of the wisdom space. Meeting such a woman can have a profound effect on the journey of a tantric practitioner, let alone an ordinary person. So these wisdom embodiment are regarded as very special. So I remember living in India, and in in Tibetan society, sometimes there are women that are held in high regard. You know, they say that she's very special. She's a Dakini. It can either be referred to a noun, but mostly it is kind of, sometimes you find lay female practitioners, women in Tibetan culture, which are considered to be of very special powers. People sometimes refer to them as Dakinis. So that's the thing what this section refers to. So you said that you can also be the wife of the lineage holder. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because in general, you could say that if someone is recognized to be like a high level spiritual practitioner, when they take a partner for the practice, then that partner should have also high level of spiritual progress. But I think that in terms of just day-to-day practice in Tibetan culture, Bhutanese culture and so forth, of course, politics and social standing and so forth play a part in that. So the system, I think, that sometimes is more complicated than what you think it would be. Anyway, then we're continuing with the meaning of the word kadro or daikini. So where were we? So then the third meaning, it is used to refer to female energies of worldly types. It conveys, or it covers the whole range of these energies through the whole range of positively harmful to positively helpful. This is not a Buddhist usage, but one that has used throughout Indian religion and culture in general. So similarly, it is used in Tibetan culture in general. So maybe what Shantideva was speaking of, may the kinis be endowed with compassion, can also pertain to this female energy of a worldly type that is negative. Maybe that's another application. Then it is used to refer to some goddesses of the higher realms. They are goddesses still in cyclic existence, but they have a pure quality to them. In this usage, it is equivalent to the Sanskrit word Devi, which means goddess, which is the general. Sorry? Yeah. Well, positive of the higher, they refer to some goddesses of the higher realm. So I think that probably, yeah, well, either positive or neutral. I mean, you can think of, for example, those that have attained a high realm rebirth just by the mere of their absorption. So they had to rid themselves of attributes of the desire realm, so coarse levels of negativity, certainly. So it is said that there is no non-virtue in the higher realm. And because of that, there is no anger in the higher realm, because there is no non-virtue, which means that there could be virtues, but also there could be neutral states in the higher realms. Then it says, the fifth one is, it is used to refer to the goddess of the various pure realms, goddesses of the various pure realms, Buddha fields and so on, which means the various dakinis in the retinue of a male yidam. Then in Buddhist tantric language, it is especially used to indicate the feminine principle that is the expression of ultimate wisdom. So in this case, the literal name spacegoer or daikini, she will travel through wisdom space, where space does not mean emptiness, as is mere emptiness, but the positive space in which all phenomena manifest. So this daikini is as the feminine principles of enlightenment interact with the world in many ways, which means they often bring messages from the wisdom space to practitioners of all levels. Anyway, so yeah. Mm. Yeah. Mm. All right. So Chuki says that in relation to the practice of Tantra, then Rinpoche uses the translation of wisdom mother rather than consort, kind of to take away the kind of wordly connotation of the word consort. Yeah, so I think that's kind of altogether what I wanted to do is just to maybe speak a little bit about the word daikini that we're so used to, just to show that actually it has many different connotation and many different interpretation. So thinking of this verse, may daikinis be endowed with the mind of compassion, I think that we can refer to that not as those enlightened beings, but maybe to those who are more associated with worldly beings. Some of them have a vicious nature, or maybe those, I think you can also say female goddesses or whatever that might not necessarily be on the Buddhist side. May they be endowed with compassion, be able to be of benefit to many sentient beings as possible. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say with respect to verse 40. Then verse 41 continues in saying, may sentient beings never suffer, commit negativities, or become ill. May they not be afraid or despised, and may they never have unhappy mind. Amen to that. So Ollie's asking, what was that website or dictionary that I'm using? So I'm using a dictionary that is called the Illuminator, which is put together by, I think it's called Padmakarpa or Padmakara Group. Yeah, Padmakara Group. It's a software that you need to buy if you want to have this dictionary. So it gives you not only, I think, the words, but also it glosses the words and give you the meaning. So it's, at least for me, sometimes it's useful for doing written translation. So then we're dedicating for the welfare of the ordained in particular from verse. So we've covered today verses 42, 3, 4, 5. Did we also dedicate? Then that we go to this section, dedicating so that there is the excellence of ethics. I don't know. Well, let's see what we can cover. So, so verse 42, may the monasteries flourish and excellently remain due to reading and recitation. May the Sangha always be concordant, and may the aims of the Sangha also be accomplished. So I thought that first of all, it's interesting that it's such Shantideva says that may the flourishing of monasteries and the remaining of the monasteries is attributed to reading and recitation. So often, at least in the Tibetan tradition, we hold that we can uphold the Buddha Dhamma through study, reflection, and meditation. But then there are activities that occur in monasteries that bring people together. So I guess in a traditional setup, you have pujas or ceremonies, morning recitations, afternoon recitation, evening recitations that monks and nuns have to participate in, and those are the things that bring the community together. So this is interesting because I thought that also in relation to the point that Ollie brought up in Geshe-la's session, but also in general, I think that with our lifestyle, we find that often we aspire to be monastics, but we find it really difficult to live in communities. So the Buddha's monastic life, it was designed for communities. And of course, not everyone lives in a community, but still, when you look at the way that the Buddha laid out monastic rules and disciplines and rituals and so forth, the whole basis is monastic communities. It's not on an individual level, but a monastic community. So, for example, fully functioning monastic community is a monastic community that can do sojong, which is the twice monthly rite of confession and restoration of the monastic vow, which is based on having at least fully ordained monks in a monastic community. No, so here we cannot have these rituals because we don't have those fully ordained. Do we have them? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, actually, we do have full folio dent, but we can still come up with excuses why we don't have it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so we have Bender, Tony, Geshe, and myself. Yeah. But on top of that, then I think that Geshe will have to memorize some stuff. I mean, there are some practical issues. Now, there are some practical issues with that. Kind of, I wonder, we want to do it, but I think that when we go into the great details and when we start to look at what we need to memorize, I think that people will bail out. Yeah. Yeah, but that's for monastics, not for lay people. Yeah. Thank you. Hmm. I mean, so there's the Sojong practice, but also on top of that, there's the summer retreat. So that's one activity, and the end of the summer retreat activity. So December, January, yeah, all of these. So I think that kind of if I bring it back to making those aspirations, I think that we can really include that in our aspiration. May we be able to establish fully functioning monastic communities. So no, I agree with you, Georgie. May we be able to do it so that we will have fully monastic, fully functioning monastic communities. So it says here, may the monasteries flourish and excellently remain due to reading and recitation. So maybe my spin on that is that doing reading and recitation together of the rules or the ceremonies, the rites that constitute a fully functioning monastic community. Khenpo Kumpel says that, I mean, not only here, but everywhere, of course. So Khenpo Kumpel says, in all temples and monasteries, great or small, wherever the scriptures are present, may the Tripitaka be explained, listened to, and reflected upon, right? So may the three collections of teachings containing teachings on sutras, on Vinaya, and on Abhidharma, which means on training in ethical discipline, training in concentration, and training in wisdom. May the study of this text, may those texts, be explained, may it be listened to, and may it be reflected upon. May the sutras and the rest be retained in the minds and never forgotten. I mean, this is actually quite nice because the Tibetan system is based on memorization. So when you go to a monastery and you begin your study, the first thing that you expected to do is to memorize like a massive body of texts. So Drama, one of the nuns that was here for more than 10 years, is now doing her studies in the School of Dialectics in India. And as part of her annual exam, she also has a memorizing exam in which every day in her studies, she has to memorize a page or two of the text. And then when you go into your examination room, then the teacher might give you a random verse. It doesn't tell you where you should start from. So certain verse is recited, and then you have to just pick up on that verse and continue the recitation. All is done by heart. So it's hard for us, isn't it? I mean, we're not used to memorizing stuff. It is possible. I mean, drama, it is possible for drama. So why not? Yeah. Yeah, so Chugila is saying that no, we can do that. In some sense, you can say that we're obliged to do it, so that also for our own sake, when we will at some point go through the process of dying, where kind of our senses will decline, and the only thing that will remain with us is our mind. So we need something that we can utilize. But I think that we can also connect it with what I said yesterday, that to uphold the Buddha's teachings and to make it available for many generations to come, the teachings need to be held as scriptures and as realization. So they need to be studied. And part of the process is to memorize those texts, or at least to read them, and also to study them. So may that come to be. May they be recited, may they be remembered. May the meaning be meditated upon one pointedly, in brief. In all monasteries, may the activities of the Buddha's followers, and activities are the abandonment of defilements, the practice of concentration, learning, and study, may all of this flourish and remain for a long time. By contrast, in places of trade and agriculture, where people are enslaved by wealth and tormented by attachment and aversion with respect to each other, and where they are distracted night and day by constant enmity, quarreling, and spiteful grudges, and especially in places where there are conflicts in the Sangha, the qualities and experiences of realization can never arise, just as burnt seeds can never produce green shoots. So I think that what Khenpo Kumpen says here, you can say that in some sense it's based on Tibetan setup, Tibetan tradition 2 centuries ago, you could say, when he speaks about places of business, in places of trade and agriculture and so forth, when people are enslaved by wealth and tormented by attachment and aversion. You can say that it belongs to his time, but actually it's pretty much valid to our setup as well if we make certain amendments. I mean, if we all stay consumed with day-to-day life, with worldly affairs, with business, work, and so forth, and we don't spend more and more time developing a mind, the Dharma will not remain. So do you mean that yeah, so you're saying that through our practice, we also then start to influence our environment, our surrounding. So of course we do it for ourselves, we do it also for the sake of the Dharma, but also it has a rippling effect on the environment around us. So seeking to benefit as much as people as possible, as many beings as possible with the Bodhisattva ideal. We're doing different recitations and so forth. I'm just repeating some of your stuff for the people at home. So Jason is saying that also, having done the Nyingma and reading some stuff that Rinpoche said, that by doing such practices, you yourself become a holy being or a great being, in the sense that kind of you have a certain influence over the environments, even when you go out shopping centers and so forth. Even on a subtle level, that brings up some influence on the people around you, or All right. I don't know about that, but yeah, it's probably not the Snakes at Forensic Institute. They need some more mantras. Yeah. Anyway, kind of for people at home, there was a reference to something that Lama Zopa Rinpoche have said in the past, that by reciting the 10 malas of Om Mani Padme Hum, even snakes will not bite you. People, yeah. Anyway, this is kind of a very much Rinpoche style, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not that I discredit that, but it's like, it's easy to kind of visualize or to think of Rinpoche saying that. I'm wondering, Ollie is asking, would that imply perhaps that tantric ritual was not in use in monastery setting in the 8th century? Monastic setting in the 8th century. So it's hard to, I don't know, I don't know much about what happened in India at that point in time. It was still, I think, at a time in which the Nalanda monastery was operating. The 8th century was around the time that Buddhism was spreading out into Tibetan society. And it was also, I think, probably 7th, 8th century, that's the time of Shantideva. Nalanda monastery was destroyed around the 10th century with the invasion of yeah, around that time. Yeah, it was kind of the end of yeah, maybe 10th, 11th century was the end of the Nalanda monastery with the invasion of the Muslims into India. So whether it was kind of, it was not in use in monastic setting in India, I don't know. In Tibet, I assume that it was not a major part of it. It was at a time in which it just monasticism in Tibet just started, and then it went into decline. So then Khenpo Kumpa says, thus whatever the monastic order finds, wherever the monastic order finds itself, may the ordained never be divided by demonic forces. We spoke about it yesterday. Demonic forces, we can think about it mainly insofar as your own afflictions. May we not be divided by our own afflictions. May the minds be inclined to virtue. May they bring their discipline in conformity with Uposatha, which I assume that it is the Sojong practice, right? So may we be able to have fully functioning communities where we have Sojong, when we have summer retreats, the end of summer retreats, rituals, and so forth. And may they make their view conform with the Sojong of common abiding. And in accordance with a wish, may they acquire even more extraordinary qualities of the path of liberation beyond suffering, which is their goal. I wanted to bring up something just because we have time and we can just add to that. Shantideva said in the 9th chapter, I think that it was verse 44, let's see, in the 9th chapter. It says, while the root of the teaching, so the 9th chapter is the wisdom chapter. It says, while the root of the teaching is fully ordained monks, or you can also say the fully ordained in general. In Sanskrit language, there is 44 in the 9th chapter. In Sanskrit language has different conjugation and declination of verbs and nouns according to male and female and so forth, and everything has to accord with a certain meter and syllable counts in each line. So sometimes you use the male form, I think, just to indicate, just to complete a certain syllable count, and you cannot add sometimes the female suffix, because then you will have too many syllables in one line. So I think that here when it says, may the root of the teachings is fully ordained monks, I think that maybe in general we can say in English, the fully ordained. Even those fully ordained themselves abide with difficulty. So there are different explanations to that. Just thought of throwing that in. When you look at Lama Tsongkhapa's illumination of the thought, he explains that it says the root of the teachings are monks who have abandoned the afflictions, that is, arhats. So of course, arhats can be either male or females. They don't have to be necessarily fully ordained monks. So not to mention Buddhahood, even such monkhood, which means those who attain the state of arhatship, is difficult. That is impossible if the wisdom realizing emptiness is not cultivated, because the conception of inherent existence prevents nirvana. Then to that, Khenpo Kumpa says in page 339, with respect to verse 44, he says, the root of perfect doctrine is the perfect monk, or I think that again we can say a perfect monastic, monks or nuns. But to be a perfect monk is not an easy matter. It is said that 5 categories of men receive the designation of monks. There are those who are simply called monks, those whose vows are degenerate, those who are just the recipients of alms, those who are fully ordained, and those who have abandoned negative emotions or afflictions. Of these, the first 3 are only nominally monks. The latter 2 are the best kind, which means that those that have attained the state of an arhat, and those who are fully ordained. So when we think of bhikshus and bhikshunis, no, let's not have an argument. We don't have to have an argument now or debate. I think it probably yeah, anyway. So so the latter 2 are the best kinds, which mean fully ordained, and those who are arhats, and it is they who are the root of the doctrine. Of this, the supreme monk or monkhood is in the ultimate sense, is the one who has abandoned negative emotions. So then I thought of linking it up here with those verses to speak about dedication for the sake of the Sangha. So when we think of dedication for the sake of the Sangha and the flourishing monastic communities, first of all, it says here, the root of the teachings is the fully ordained. So you can think about it from the point of view of being able to pass on the lineage of ordination, not only the lineage of ordination, but also other layers of vows. So for example, to give a novice ordination, you need to be fully ordained. To pass on the lineage of ordinations in places like that for many generations to come, then we need to establish a community of people that will be able to do it. Currently, we cannot do it. I cannot ordain people, although I'm fully ordained monk, because I don't have the knowledge of how to do it. We don't have also an institution that makes sure that we do it in the correct way. In a sense that the Tibetan tradition has quite a lot of checks and balances. We don't have those checks and balances here in this setup, not yet. Right, so may we be able to establish a system with checks and balances that will be able to also transmit those lineages of full ordination to future Australians or future people living in other places, so that lineages of ordination will still exist. Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that in Tibetan setup, it is not very common for someone that is not just a geisha, I'm saying it's just a geisha, but someone that is not like highly acclaimed or recognized in a particular way to give ordination. It's something that is normally left for someone who is either considered to be kind of a high authority, high spiritual authority, which means a high-ranking lama, Rinpoche or whatever, or someone that is known to have had pure discipline. Probably, how many geishas do we have in Australia? I mean, we can think of FUMT organizations, so probably a handful, or maybe 10, 5, 10, not even 10, but also geishas belonging to other, to other centers, or those that came here as refugees. I said that probably maybe 10, 20s, I don't know, 20, 10, 20, not more than that, but it is, I think that unlikely to think that they would kind of happily or easily agree to give ordination. It's considered to be something also of kind of great responsibility. Yeah. Yeah, if you receive an ordination from a certain person, you rely upon that person as a spiritual teacher. Yeah. Yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that was verse 44 in chapter number 9. So let's go back to verse chapter 10. So we covered 42. May the monasteries flourish and excellently remain due to reading and recitation, being able to train well, being able to, monastics being able to attain the state of arhatship, to maintain the lineages of ordination, to pass it on to future generation. And may this, because also when we think of having a precious human rebirth with freedoms and richnesses, one of the qualities of the 8 freedoms is to be free from being born in a borderland where the 4 lineages are not present, right? So if you don't have the 4 lineages of practitioners, which means male and female monks and nuns, and male and female upasaka, upasaki, which means those who have the vows and also can pass them on to others, you don't have freedoms and richnesses, freedoms and opportunities. So this is kind of an integral part of our practice, to have those who can pass on those lineages. May the Sangha always be concordant, and may the aims of the Sangha also be accomplished. I mean, I think that probably when I think of the years that I've been here and different ups and downs that the community have been through, one of the things that the Geshes always emphasize is to try to maintain harmony as much as we can. And I think that they come from those big monasteries that have been operating for so many centuries. So this cohesion is in the monasteries, first of all, important, but I think that there are examples from the past where a division has been created and then the monastery has collapsed, or there were big problems that have arisen from that. So I think that this is something that we need to take to heart, right? Since we're such a young community, then at least, of course, it's hard to see eye to eye with people around us all the time. And we also we're conditioned to think as individuals, to think, first of all, of what do I want? What do I feel? What do I want the situation here to be? But then in terms of living in a community, since this is the Buddha's rules for monastics are designed for living in a community, then sometimes we need to think of actually what does the community need? It's more important than what I need. Mm. Mm. So Chucky, mm, mm. Yeah, I think it also has an effect of a kind of, you send out this effect to the outside. So I'm just going to repeat it for the people at home. So Chukida was saying that um, in a place like this, not only it's important to maintain this harmony in the Sangha community, but also the community in general. So Rinpoche recommended, for example, to do practices together, to do the Guru Puja together, lay people and monastics, so to create this unity or harmony, So Michelle is saying that, going back to what Jason said, when you do those practices, also as a layperson, so you do those practices to a certain degree, and then you start to embody those qualities. Then you go out, you go to the shopping center or to the other places. So you bring what the teachings and your practice out there to the community. So it does have an effect also on others. Yeah, thank you. Sanction Plaza. Well, it's actually not that bad. I don't know. Sanction Plaza is underrated. It's a wonderful place. This is what I do in my spare time. Anyway, so there it says in the commentary. Let's look first of all at the verse. So may the Sangha always be concordant, may the aims of the Sangha also be accomplished. Then may monks who wish to train also find solitude, having abandoned all distractions, may they meditate with serviceable minds. That is an interesting point that Geshe was making. So first of all, solitude, as Geshe said, there is like, you can think of physical isolation, verbal isolation, and mental isolation, which are required to certain types of practice. But what we want to isolate ourselves, if you remember the 8th chapter, we want to isolate ourselves from the hustle and bustle of the world in order to reduce anger, attachment, and so forth. Oh, sorry, in order, first of all, to reduce this stimuli that we get from the outside. And then in order to reduce anger, attachment, and so forth, operating internally. So we want to cultivate that type of solitude. So rather than just kind of thinking that I'm going to set off and live in a cave or somewhere else, which is actually, for certain practices, it works well. If you're aiming at going into retreat and cultivating calm abiding, it is likely that you will need to go into a certain form of solitude. If you want to, I think, maintain to a certain degree, a few years of balanced way of living and to study and reflect in a particular way so that you create kind of a really good basis for working with your mind, seeking some level of mental isolation is good. I mean, I think that probably coming here is some form of mental isolation. It's, some form of isolation, physical and mental isolation. And you can also go further than that, but you can also do less than that. Yeah. Yeah, it's harder to isolate yourself when you're outside in a community. I think that probably, I mean, we have to, I guess, assess our own power, our own ability to do that. I find that if I go outside of this setup or other Buddhist setups with Buddhist friends, and I hang out with friends from home and for school and so forth, bit by bit, my focus shifts and my priority shifts. So for me, I still need to work on developing that isolation. So this setup for me works better. Sometimes I'm full of admiration of those that become monks or nuns, but still live in the big city or not in a Dharma center or setup. I think that would not work for me. If you can sustain ordination like that, that's good, but for me, it wouldn't work. I mean, I found that Ollie asked today a question about Milarepa and Mapa and so forth, that it seems that they practiced as lay people and intend a state of enlightenment. So would it be more suitable for us? I think that kind of sometimes, if you think of actually what Milarepa and Tilopa and Mapa did, it's more full on than what we do as monastics here. I mean, we can indeed practice, people can practice as lay people and so forth. You don't necessarily have to come monastics, but in no way it is saying that we're practicing like Milarepa and so forth, because to practice like Milarepa, Mapa, Tilopa, and Gampopa and so forth, you have actually to really relinquish all your worldly affairs. Of course, it's not applicable to everyone. People have families, jobs, and so forth. But I think that if we think that we can attain the state of enlightenment, if our focus is still on that worldly level, if the focus is still, the main focus is our work and family and friends and houses and taking care of our property and so forth, of course, we can have a really meaningful and good Dharma practice. But I think that for most people, it'd be hard, it would be difficult to make a lot of progress, a great progress. It's not to say that it is not valid, but we ought not to kid ourselves. Yeah. I mean, it's not that for me, kind of, I have an excellent practice, but it does require a lot of commitment. It does require renunciation. All right. Shall we leave it here for now? Thank you very much, people. Due to this virtue, I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigrated beings without exception to that state. May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that the reason not incline, but increase more and more. In this land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. You uphold the subdurer's moral way, who serves an bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplished magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels. Protect of myself and others, your disciples. Please, please live long. Thank you. So, Ollie, you're welcome to join the community of monastics here at the center.
Thank you very much, Katzen. I may one day.
The doors are always open to you.
Good on you.
Yeah. He's not allowed to bring the dog. Have you got a dog, Ollie?
I've got two Dobermans.
Ah, I love them.
And they're very fierce.
Right? Yeah. Well, so maybe hold off. Cool. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.